Hello, you splendid lot, it's Megagran here again with another episode from Vintage Beef's Patreon server, Vintagecraft. Now then, I'm on my way to Smorphs, and there's no telling what I'll find when I get there, because there's been a number of worrying public disturbances that have occurred on the Vintagecraft server following a ghastly incident at the Babies in Buckets store, also known as Bibs, a jointly owned establishment situated in a central location in the upper shopping cave. The store was recently featured in a Vintagecraft postcard, part of a series of daily postcards written by server admin Ant Brooks, a well-known prolific wordsmith. The ghastly incident was exposed by the perpetrator himself, Bluggy, who defiantly posted a screenshot of the bloody scene depicting the gruesome remains of beheaded axolotls impaled on wooden poles with blood soaking the ground where he stood. One of the shop owners, Elisa Muffins, was distraught. Sobbing, Elisa called for a ban on Bluggy. Her partner, Ewan, with a surname I can't pronounce, confirmed that Bluggy was killing babies in buckets. In reply to the accusations, Bluggy defiantly stated, "And I'll do it again," which was quickly followed up by almost maniacal laughter from his right-hand person, H.L. Llama. Whilst others in the Vintagecraft community found these images quite upsetting. Ant Brooks, also a noted historian, recalled Bluggy's past love of axolotls, which resulted in him building a deluxe axolotl pool in the service's previous season. Bluggy took no time in clarifying his previous actions, which he explained were preparations for his current activities. Questions are now being asked about the motivation for these senseless killings. One theory suggests that a mutant axolotl bite may have caused some kind of reaction. Another theory being discussed is that the seemingly innocuous activity of collecting mob heads on the server may have instigated some kind of change, which was precipitated by a prolonged savage period collecting heads whilst in the resource world. The real reason remains a mystery, and whatever the reason is, it cannot be denied that Bluggy's immoral beliefs are strong and unwavering. One server member thought the whole macabre story quite humorous. The same member also demonstrated a rather curious adoration for the perpetrator, and whose subsequent behaviour has only fuelled his insatiable hatred for these innocent and adorable little creatures. Furthermore, a worrying trend has been observed, which started soon after the original macabre incident, that of a rising membership of a cult following with the initials AAA, which was first cited in another postcard by Ant Brooks, also a well-known satirist. This postcard features another shop owned by Grimer and is a second source for purchasing axolotls. It is assumed that Ant Brooks's early assessment of this incident may have been an underestimation of the seriousness of the situation, as this frivolous statement demonstrated. However, he very quickly recanted and demonstrated a much more favourable grasp of the situation in the hope that his earlier statement would be quickly dismissed. Some others who jumped on the humorous bandwagon didn't stay there long, preferring to sit on the fence and reserve judgment, despite being spurred on by one of Bluggy's closest sycophants. In any case, the initialism AAA fairly swiftly became the rallying cry for this unfavoured cult, and other weak-minded server members were quickly recruited. It was not long before initiation ceremonies were regularly taking place. As the cult's insidious doctrine continued to pervade the server, voices were heard raised in opposition, none more vocal than Smorpheous, whose adoration for these marvellous little creatures is well known. In an effort to save axolotls from extermination, Smorpheous built a sanctuary where axolotls could remain safe and secure. The Water Kitten Protection Society was formed with a simple and admirable goal of saving as many axolotls as possible to prevent extinction on the server. Membership of the WKPS grew as word spread and axolotls were being bought and kept safe from the hands of the AAA. But something has happened, and I have no idea what it is. I can't see anything happening around here. It seems clear, but I need to get to the axolotl sanctuary as quickly as possible. Let's see if I can remember where it is. I think it was round here somewhere. No, it was back here. There it is. Oh my goodness me! We are the AAA. Too long have the water vermin run rampant. They have infested our server far too long. The server must be cleansed of this filth. Try your best to protect your water rats. You won't succeed. Consider yourselves and those disgusting creatures at our mercy. The AAA officially declares war on all axolotls. Fear us. This cannot be borne. Oh my goodness.
They've taken all of them, Gran. Got one axolotl left.
In a dangerous and covert operation looking for his axolotls, Smorf managed to get his hands on one of Bluggy's special blue axolotls. Several threats were received after that, and it wasn't long before we saw a ransom demand in chat. How brazen was that? But Smorf was defiant. The WKPS will pay no ransom. We didn't recognise the AAA or their archaic notion of extermination. We had to hope that life would find a way, and the water kittens would one day live free. And Smorf, optimistic as ever, was hopeful for peaceful negotiations. It was quite difficult, after everything that had gone on, not to be suspicious of everything and everyone, especially some strange person walking across your land and using your portal, coming from a direction in which he didn't live. That was too much for me. I had to go and see what was happening. I had to go and see if Smorf was okay. Somebody had been on his land, and Smorf had found some freshly dug dirt. Someone had been here digging. We made a thorough search of the ground, and I spotted someone right on the corner of one of the buildings. So I tentatively approached, not knowing really what I was getting myself into. I found Bluggy, cowering in a corner. Some very fishy business going on. I was quite surprised when he ran off, probably looking for his partner in crime. It looked like he wasn't the only person that was around. Llama was around too. So they were both here, and I could only deduce that they were looking for the rare blue axolotl that Bluggy had lost. But Smorf was firing at someone, and someone was firing back. So I crept up to see if I could give some support. And as I got nearer, I saw that it was Llama. So if Llama was here, Bluggy was somewhere else. So I shouted to Smorf that I would carry on the pursuit, and he should go look for Bluggy. Llama was all over the place. They knew they shouldn't be here. No argument could make their actions valid. It was obviously she wasn't here for a walk in the park, for she had a totem of undying in her hand. It was a standoff. She couldn't go any further. She was very precariously balanced on the top of a tree. But she wasn't going to come back this way. I was going to stand my ground. She'd have to jump, or she'll be pushed. Which was it going to be? I gave her some time. But I didn't have all day, so I prepared to open dialogue with her, just to find out what she was intending, and as I did, she sidled backwards, and got herself on a lower branch. There was nowhere to go. I had just reminded her of her precarious position, but she didn't seem to care. She held on to the very tip of the corner of that branch. I made movements as if I was going towards them. I could see from chat that Smorf and Bluggy were having conversations as well. And I was just asking what she was going to do when she took the plunge and jumped down. She got down very quickly to the bottom. So I got ready to fire a few warning shots, just to say don't come back. And as my second arrow found its target, it was obvious she was wearing thorns, so I needed to be careful. I sent a few more arrows her way, and did my best to avoid hers. She didn't manage to get me once. Some of her arrows came close, though. But it was a long way, and I could see them coming. She was backing off now, still using the trees for cover. But I wasn't really meaning to hit her. I didn't want those thorns wearing down my armour. And before I knew it, she turned tail and she ran. I went back to see if I could help Smorf, and he was outnumbered. The AAA were on the attack, with Bluggy giving uppercuts with his pork chop left, right and centre. I was wielding my sword, and Smorf had an axe. We were defending. It seemed they were giving us the runaround, and I could only suspect that there were other members of the AAA looking around to see if they could find any more axolotls. I was using both my sword and my bow now, at every opportunity. Bluggy was still on the offensive with the pork chop, and I defended with my sword and my shield. I hoped that Smorph was okay. I hadn't seen him for a while. I tried to meander round the side of the houses, but Bluggy kept coming back. It was getting late in the day now, and suddenly there was some respite from the fighting as we had to defend ourselves from the phantoms. But somebody had slept, and in the daylight the phantoms wouldn't last long. It seemed far too quiet round here, so I needed to go round. I could see the tags on the other side, so I needed to go around and see who they were and what was happening. I filled up my haunches and then spotted Smorph. He was firing arrows, so they must be running, so I thought I'd get round the other side. When I got there, Smorph was blocking them in. They'd actually made a beeline for the nether, and it looked like this battle was over. I was just hoping they hadn't gone for reinforcements, but at least they'd gone, and that gave us some time. So I went back to my base with thoughts of at last putting some leaves on that tree. Smorph had suggested using azalea leaves, which I thought was a good idea really, because they don't change colour in different biomes, so that would be good. And as I was bone mealing the bushes, they would make rooted dirt. I could put these blocks underneath my roots and bone meal them, and the roots would hang down. I thought that would look pretty cool, so I was definitely going to use those. And the oak from an azalea tree would actually be used for the branches that hang down from the main branches to make the willow tree. So I started at the back of the tree, where the branches were relatively smaller than the front, and a bit close to the ground as well. So I started with the fences, and I put them on the ends, brought them down quite low, and these would be what the leaves would connect to. I didn't want these fences to join up, so I needed a good space in between them. Now I was thinking at the time that this would be quite experimental, because I hadn't done a tree as big as this before. I'd done a much smaller tree in comparison, so this big tree was a bit daunting really. And I felt the trick would be getting these far enough apart so that they didn't connect, and getting them close enough together so that the leaves would hang down as individual branches. So the leaves were going to connect to these fence posts all the way down to the bottom, and then underneath as well. It was a bit difficult to get into, but I'm sure my flow would come with a bit more practice. So I carried on and just put leaves on each of the sides of the fence posts. I didn't want to leave any big gaps in the middle, so I made sure after each fence post was surrounded by leaves, I had a really good look from the ground up to see if there was any bare fence posts. And they were quite easy to see. It was just getting up there to actually cover them. It was quite easy to get into the habit of adding leaves where there were no fence posts, but this only made it look a bit blocky and square, and I didn't really want that. So I needed to be careful of that and just try and focus on the fence posts and making sure I covered them instead of filling the spaces in between. So it's coming along. Still looked a bit blocky on that side, and I might actually change that. But I need to carry on and see if I can get into some kind of flow with the fence posts and the leaves. So more of the same, fence posts and then leaves for each of the branches. And once the branch was full, I needed to step back and see if it had the shape that I wanted. And then repeat it on the other side and make sure there were no big holes throughout the middle of the branch. And after a bit of shearing and a bit of chopping, it was back to placing leaves. And when I stepped back and had a look, I was quite chuffed with the results. I hadn't done it along the top of the branches, so I needed to figure out what to do up there. But I felt like it was going well. And then I was on to my second branch. The first branch I was quite pleased with, really. And with doing this second branch, then I'd be able to see where to put the higher branches to fill in the gaps. I couldn't help but keep my eye on chat, and it didn't look good. It seemed like the AAA were at it again. So with sword and shield in hand, I headed up to Smorpheous. Wasn't quite sure what I was going to find there, but if it was anything like earlier, it would be trouble. Well, everything looked quiet here, but there was something going on somewhere. Well, I had a good look around the front of the house, round the back, in between, down the hill, everywhere. And I couldn't see anything just yet. As I moved towards the back, I saw Jack Zeller again. He was there earlier, and he was the one that ran across my land and into my portal. And he was known to be on the side of the AAA, so he wasn't going to get away if I could help it. And it wasn't easy negotiating all this copper, I can tell you that for nothing. And as I worked my way towards the edge of the cliff, I could see loads of tags. Who were they all? Oh my goodness, that's Drew. What's Drew doing? He was sitting on the fence earlier. I don't know which side he's on now, but he's not attacking me, so I'm thinking he might be on ours. There's Tyler Thomas, he's definitely on our side. Who else is down there? Can't quite see them. Who is that? Zeller there again. He's not on our side. Who's that? Is that... That looks like Omnicron, I think. They all seem to be moving up top, and that's where I was heading. And it wasn't long before the battle was in full flow. I've never been a good PvPer, but I'm not afraid to whack them with my axe if I can get near them. Whack 'em and run away, that's what I say. Whoa. There was a flame bow in the fight as well, so it's a good job I had my bucket on my hotbar. But I couldn't leave my water down there, I needed it in my bucket. Didn't know when I was going to need it. But I managed to get it back, so that was okay. When there was distance between people, I got my bow out, and I made a few good shots. But as soon as they saw me, I was off. And it looked like he meant business. But somebody else caught his eye, and I was free of him. Then all of a sudden, everyone was at Smorph, so I piled in there as well, to try and get some of them away. Bluggy looked like a pincushion. He'd obviously been in the sights of a few arrows. The Smorph was holding his own, and so was I. And Drew did appear to be on our side. He was wielding a fishing line, pulling them out, pulling them away. Where was those arrows coming from? Who was shooting? Smorph was on fire again, and my handy bucket quelled the flames. There was so much violence around Smorph's base. I was such a peaceful person as well. And now both of them were on me. I just kept my shield up. They were obviously sick of me chipping away at them. I landed a few blows with my axe, and I continued defending myself as much as I could, landing a few more blows when I could. In such a small space and with so much movement and so many people, there was bound to be some collateral damage, and I think I whacked Tyler Thomas a couple of times during that battle. It seemed to be going on and on, It was time to stop. It was time to bring it to an end. But I had no idea how that was going to happen. They'd come to us. They'd brought the fight here. It's them that had to go. It's them that had to back off. This is the world with axolotls in it. This is the world with a in it. They needed to be eliminated. Oh my goodness. But the battle carried on. It became more intense even. I couldn't keep my eye on everybody. Everybody was spread out and everybody was coming together. Oh, that was Bluggy again. But I wasn't about to let him get away with that. I was in hot pursuit. And I managed to get him with my axe. But he managed to get me back with his piece of meat. With his pork chop. There was such intense battles going on. And each person seemed to have something different as a weapon. There was bows and arrows, there was pieces of meat, there was a fishing rod, there was axes, there was swords. But it shouldn't be happening here. It shouldn't be happening on Smorph's land. Smorph had got an axolotl bucket out. I don't know what he was doing with it. I think he was goading Bluggy with it. And Bluggy was getting back at him with his lump of meat. And there was Procrastinating Puma. Hadn't seen him earlier, but he joined the fray. A lot of the fighting now seemed to be between Smorph and Bluggy. And then somehow Bluggy had his ender chest open and out came the flint and steel. And he was using it all over the place. It looked like he was trying to get Smorph to empty his bucket to put out the flames. And of course he had the axolotl in that bucket. I tried to stay as close to him as I could with my bucket, in the hope that he didn't have to use his. But it was really difficult. They were all over the place. They were moving about really fast now. And there was fire everywhere. They were moving towards the houses. Good job Fire Tick was off. And there was Llama. Hadn't seen her earlier. She must have just joined the fray. And then there was a trident in the mix of weapons. I don't know who was wielding that, but it was being thrown all over the place. There was Jack Zeller again. Oh my goodness. Was it never going to end? I landed a few blows on Llama. She only had a bucket in her hand, but she had a totem of undying still in her other, so she knew that she could die. She landed a few blows on me with her bucket, but I was determined to stay as close to Smorph as I could with my bucket in my hand. And it was Jack that was wielding the trident. And Smorph's armour was wearing down. He'd taken a lot of hits, but now it was Smorph and Bluggy in the narrow alleyway of Smorph's build. It was a standoff. Smorph was showing him what he had, and Bluggy was determined to get it. I don't know what Bluggy had eaten, but he'd got particles coming off him, so he was protected by something. And suddenly, Bluggy lunged at Smorph with a tirade of axe blows. I don't know whether it was by design or accident, but the axolotl was on the floor. Bluggy scooped it up, and he was away. Smorph was in hot pursuit, but he couldn't catch Bluggy. Bluggy was gone. The AAA came, and they got what they came for. They claimed victory for this battle, but they hadn't yet won the war. A battle that was named after the copper fields that we fought in. It was called the Battle of David. It was hard to settle after that battle. It was a long and arduous one, but armour and weapons were repaired, and everybody went home and got back to what they were doing before it all started. For me, that was leafing my tree. And I was getting on with it now better than ever. It all seemed to be coming together. I seemed to feel like I knew what I was doing. And as I turned to look at my work, it looked just like I hoped it would. I liked it a lot. I was really getting into a rhythm with it. So I think that'll be it for this week. And we'll see how I get on with the tree over the next week or so. And we'll see how the axolotl wars develop. There will be more. It won't stay like this. So take care, everybody. Bye-bye. And I'll see you in the next episode.